Hi, friends. I'm gonna start calling myself Sweaty In because that's just my life right now. I had a conversation with someone recently that reminded me of a lot of conversations I've been having with people over the past few months, and I thought it might be helpful just to share a couple of perspectives on this question. And the question is I've been talking with people who feel like they're in relationships, whether they're friendships, loverships, family ships, work ships, where they're not able to be their whole self. There's some part of themselves that they feel they have to withhold or repress, or they feel oppressed in some way in these relationships. And one of the struggles is the question of, do I stay or do I go? And it's a valid question. Uh, do I stay or do I go? And I'm not going to talk you out of that if you are working up the courage, if you've gotten clarity and you're like, yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to leave the job, leave the whatever. But in this last conversation that I was having with this person, it occurred to me afterwards, and I've had this thought before, and I've practiced this in some of my own relationships, that what would it be like to bring the fullness of ourselves into the relationship? So rather than shielding the other person from what it is that we think is too much about ourselves, what if we just brought it all forward and let the other person deal with it? And so in a work situation, this is not going to be the most appropriate thing. You're going to have to figure out where in your work relationships you're withholding in a way that's detrimental to you and your colleagues, but not necessarily all of you is going to be appropriate in the workplace. So I'm just going to say that, I acknowledge it, and now we're moving on. We're setting work aside, those professional relationships aside, and we're going back to our personal relationships, our families, our friends, our lovers, people that we meet on the street. So we can start with something really simple. Like, people struggle to feel like I can't wear what I want to wear around the people in my life, or I can't talk about the topics that I want to talk about with the people in my life. Well, if it's just a matter of what I say and how I look is offensive to people, first of all, do we really know that? And again, I am sweating, so I'm just going to start calling myself Sweaty In. And that's going to be my name for the rest of the summer. So I don't know if it's showing up here in the camera, but I can just feel the wet on my body. So starting with the simple things, like if you are going out with someone, like you're going to meet them somewhere for dinner or a walk or whatever, and you really want to put that pink thing on, put it on and see what happens. If you are in a conversation with someone, especially if this is someone that you consider to be a friend, and you are not speaking truthfully about your disagreements with what's coming up in the conversation, or if you're not sharing your perspective, which might be a little bit different from theirs or a lot different, if you're not bringing your A game to that relationship at any point, that's on you. That's how I feel about it. So here's the thing. I know that it can feel really awful to be in community or communion or relationship relating with someone or a group of people who don't seem to have space for who you are, for who we feel we are in a moment, in a season of our lives, in our actual long, full on, this is who I am my entire life. I understand that we can feel really unseen. It can feel isolating if we feel like we're not being met by the people that we're spending our time and energy with. And from personal experience, I can say that if we're not bringing ourselves to the conversation, if we are making the decision that the other person cannot handle us, or if we are in our woundedness or our insecurities or whatever else it is that we use to hold ourselves back, if we are not allowing the other person to make their choice fully on their own about whether or not they can handle us, whether or not they want to be around us, whether or not we're a good fit for them, whether or not they, would prefer it if we held back sometimes. If we don't show up and offer them the fullness and the truthfulness of who we are, we're not allowing that other person to actually be in right relationship or honest relationship or deep relationship with us. So if you are someone who is currently struggling with this idea of people don't get me, I'm in community with people, and by community I am talking about one-on-one partnerships as well as multiple people, families, friends, etc., collaborators. I'm really, really curious for all of us to explore this idea of how much am I holding back because I'm holding back versus how much am I holding back because the other person or the other people said you have to hold back. So if someone's not hearing you, for example, like you're super excited about something and you want to share it with your person or your friend because they're your person and your friend, and they're just not able to get it. They're not present, they're not connecting with you, they're not curious and asking questions back about, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, or that sounds interesting, or I have no idea what you're talking about, but keep talking, maybe I'll get it, If that person is not able to respond to you, then it might be because they don't have the language to respond, and maybe they don't know they have the language to respond, and maybe they would need to learn how to respond to you in a way that makes you feel like you've actually made a connection. And so there can be a conversation about that, so scenario, you are excited about an event, you tell your friend or whomever about this event that you're excited about, and they're like, neutral about it, or just not as enthusiastic as you thought they should be, which is a whole nother conversation we could have about how we think people should act and respond to us and what we do with our experience that has nothing to do with what the other person is experiencing. I could have another conversation about that and how we damage our relationships by assuming the other person should respond to us in a particular way and then not communicate it. So going back to the scenario, because I actually just recently spoke with someone about this. This is why this one's up in my mind right now. If the person doesn't respond to you and the conversation leaves you feeling like you maybe, you showed your soft parts and they didn't appreciate that you made that connection with them, ask them about that. What's coming to mind now is I don't think it's uncommon for there to be one person in the relationship who's a little bit more conscious, a little bit more aware of the dynamics of the relationship, at least on one level, than the other person. So if you're the one with the skill set to communicate and you're not experiencing the communication that you'd like to experience with this person, help them understand that, or at least recognize that, and help them find some tools that can help them meet you better so that the two of you feel like you're communicating in a way that makes sense to the relationship. Now, if you're doing this and doing this and doing this for months and weeks and years on end and it's not shifting, then yeah, other options might be the best option for you. Maybe that's not the relationship for you. Maybe the connection is no longer appropriate or serving. You can take it from there. But I'm really encouraging us to step into our fullness in these relationships as an option to leaving the relationship without having stepped in with as much of our fullness as we know. And we know the fullness when we say things like, I really wanted to say that, but I didn't because I didn't think they would receive it well. Well, for right now, it's not about them receiving it well. It's about us speaking up and making the disagreement or pointing out the other option or opportunity or perspective or whatever. It's about us showing up. It's about you wearing color when everyone else is wearing black, or it's about you making a different career choice when everybody else expects you to head in this direction. It's about you being a carnivore surrounded by vegans, if that's your situation. We can do these things with respect. We can do them respectfully and still allow ourselves to be as much of a full person as we can be in any given moment in our relationships, understanding that we are always going to be growing and adding and dropping things off from our personalities and our preferences and all of this as we continue throughout life. So I'm sitting in a parking lot right now. It's really noisy and I'm feeling a little bit distracted. So I might come back to this conversation, but I just wanted to say this. So SparkNote, Cliff Notes version. If you are someone who's currently struggling with this idea that you don't fit in, you don't belong, that the people around you don't get you and won't allow you to be who you actually are, that may be true. It may also be true that instead of being who you are in those relationships, you are making accommodations for the other person unasked. That's so key. Unasked. So you are deciding for the other person that they don't want to see who you are, that they can't handle who you are, etc. So start with small experiments. What you want to eat, where you want to go, whatever it is people are going out and doing these days. What books you want to have on the table, what colors you want to have in the living room, what color you want to paint the bathroom, things like this. Like, what color socks? Do you want to wear socks or not wear socks? The little things. The little things that, as we do the little things, they build up the muscles so that we can make these big declarations of who we are and how we are as we're moving through our life and through our relationships. So starting with the small things that are important but shouldn't be deal breakers, so that you can grow a capacity, both of you can grow a capacity for perhaps small conflicts and learning how to negotiate differences of opinion, and then growing into these larger, more significant expressions of the fullness of who we believe ourselves to be in relation with other people. All right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go find something else to do. I'll see you guys later.